That's a 6:30. Call this meeting to order. Will you please stand and pledge allegiance with me? What? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a roll call, please?
Hannah,
Yes.
Callahan,
Here.
Rodriguez,
Here.
Hill,
Here.
Scharf,
Here.
Kurtz,
Here.
O'Loughlin.
Yes.
Thank you. This meeting was called in response to a petition that was presented by the citizens, but we did decide to take advantage of the time and approve a few claims since the library had their meeting and approved some of theirs. So I would like a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Next on the agenda is a motion to approve claims for payment.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the claims. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. I do want to make a clarification to the public that the city is not allowed to receive cash payments through the mail. They can collect cash at the office or in person, but not through the mail for auditing purposes. So if you want to pay cash, you need to come in here and do it, or otherwise send a check through the mail. Next on the agenda is our resolution calling for a special election, and Steve would like to make a little presentation or talk to you about that.
Okay, so just to put this in context, the petition was received on July 13th.
Hey, switch his microphone, Bob, or help him. Move your microphone toward you, Steve.
Hold it closer. Hold it closer.
Is that better?
That's better.
Okay, sorry about that. So a petition was received on July 13th with the requisite number of signatures as verified by the county auditor, asking that I don't know how much it's asking. Basically, I would say insisting that the city hold a special election to consider switching to a different form of government. The city currently has the mayor-council form of government with wards, and the petition proposes the city switch to the council manager at large form. The major differences are the mayor is not elected under this form of government, but rather chosen or I guess appointed by the members of the elected members of the council from amongst themselves. So ultimately, it would switch to a 5-member council appointed at large. It would do away with wards. Those 5 individuals would then appoint amongst themselves mayor and mayor pro tem. No, it's 5. It is 5. The petition, attachment to the petition, in my opinion, is not correct. It's right up there at the very, very beginning of the statute that's at issue, and it very clearly says 5, as opposed to other forms of government which allow for numbers to be changed. It says right there, a city government or a city governed by the council manager at large form has 5 council members elected at large for staggered 4-year terms. Like I said, unlike a lot of the other forms of government, it does not specifically provide for the number to be changed, which
So these guys signed 7, so this isn't even a legal document.
Well, keep in mind that that is the petition itself is the form right there that says Iowa Code section authorizing the special election, 372.2 and 3, excuse me. It says, adopt a new charter to change form of government to council manager at large, Iowa Code 372.6. So the petition itself is accurate. I double checked that. The explanation from Mr. Bleichner, in my opinion, is incorrect to the extent it indicates there would not be a change in the number of council members.
How is it a legal document and it's accurate when it says, right here's what they signed, and it says there's 7. The city council consists of 7 members elected by the qualified voters, and on and on. This is what they signed. This is
That
what they
was
read
their,
to sign.
that was the clarification they put with it, but that's not what they have on the petition. And when you look at the code that's on the petition, it clarifies in that code that it's a 5-member council.
But those people, when.
This is what the signatures, this is what the people signed.
I signed the petition. It was incumbent, it's like, it's constructive notice. It's like speeding. Whether you see the sign or not, you're still accountable for speeding. And whether these people took the shortcut of reading a synopsis rather than the code section cited in the actual petition.
How do we know they were given anything else when this is all stapled to it?
Well, when it stopped at my house, they specifically said they were keeping 7 council members. Because that was one of the specific questions I asked was, you're making this change, but how many council members are going to lose their seat? And they said, none. It's going to continue with the 7 council members. They'll just all 7 be at large.
I was given the same information from a member of the committee that called me.
And this was
Read-
from the
but read the
gentleman who
code.
put it.
Read the
Well,
code.
I'm just, I'm personally, you don't want to get into people's subjective beliefs or what they might have been told where, on the state authorized petition form here, it says exactly the code section, and that's what they signed. So that's what they asked for. So whether when the election comes around or not, they want it to actually support it, even though they signed the petition, knowing that it's 5 and not 7, which may require some education on the ballot issue. The city's not permitted to advocate on ballot issues, but it can educate. So that might be an instance where the city elects to educate as to exactly what people are voting on.
When we did a petition a while back, and you guys just threw it in the garbage, if it wasn't stapled to this, it wasn't accurate. And they did nothing with it. And now this one, this is what people would have read. They'd have got handed this, they'd have read it, signed it, says 7 people.
Right, the front of that form that references the statutory code section, it says to change the form of government to council manager at large, and then it has a bunch of signature lines underneath.
Yeah, if anyone would have signed that second page, those signatures would not have been counted because it has to be attached to that original. That first page is the only thing that matters for me to look and make sure it's a signature, it's an address, and it's dated. So that's how it gets counted, whatever's on that first paper. That second paper, really for in terms of reviewing the petition, does not matter for me to take that petition on its face to say it's valid.
Did you have one of these at your beauty shop, John? And you had that paper for everybody to read, that first page?
But it's still the document, the same as when we run for election. It's when they sign our paper for us to have our name put on there. It's only that paper, and what's stated on that is what is, it doesn't matter what you attach to that, any information about yourself. It's the page that they're signing, and the information at the top of that is what they're signing. In this case, they signed for that particular state law is what they were petitioning for, of making a change from mayor council to council city manager at large.
Yeah, but
is what-
nobody, I don't think people would have signed it had they known that. They would not have signed it had they known it was cutting it from 7 to 5.
Well, but at
The
this,
whole
Right, but for-
process has been 7 members would stay on the council.
But for us to sit here and question people's subjective intent in signing a petition on a form like this is something that we can't do. We can, the city can educate them that it will be 5, and they may have petitioned for it, but they may elect to vote against it. But I don't see how, with the requisite number of signatures on this particular form, how you can say no based on what people were probably thinking based upon what people might have been told.
We can, but then they can take the next step.
I can tell you, what I was told, and I would not have signed it if I hadn't been told it was gonna stay
So,
at 7.
so from here on, we have to go forth, but we can educate the public, letting
Right.
them know that
Right.
what they signed, was, inaccurate. That you're only going to elect 5 if this as is.
Is what the code says.
My question-
And tonight, we are not here to debate that or try to guess what people thought when they signed it, anything to that degree. Because we were served a petition that had the right and number of signatures on it and was approved, we have to respond to that. And we can't vote it down and say, no, we can't have a vote, because it was requested by the number of signatures on that document.
We can vote it down, but then they can take the next step. We can vote no on this, Bonnie.
Can you vote down when somebody requests to have a special election? Can you vote them down?
The council can vote however it likes, but I would not recommend, based upon the fact that, had this petition form said something other than, had it said 372.7 when they were asking for 372.6, I would say, either we have a petition for 372.7 or we don't have a valid petition. With respect to what the council's free to do, the applicable law basically says within 15 days of receiving a valid petition, the council shall publish notice of the date of that special election, et cetera, and then it also provides the council shall notify the county commissioner of elections to publish notice of the election. To me, that's mandatory language that the city shall do it, and the city could be subject to a mandamus action or something else, asking that it do what it is otherwise required to do by law, should it not go forward and follow those two
And
shalls.
vote no, vote to
Do
deny.
they have the ability to amend that from 5 to 7 before the election, or do they have to start the whole process over again?
No, by statute, they have to stick with 5. It's statute.
It's my understanding, and if anyone can prove me wrong, they can feel free to contact me, but I looked at it, I had an associate look at it just to double check me. I see 5. And when you get to some of the other forms of government listed in the very same chapter, it will specify that that some of those you can vary. So the fact that the legislature, with respect to some forms of government, said you can vary the numbers, and then with respect to this one, said 5, it leads me to believe that 5 here means 5.
So they cannot amend it.
I do not believe so.
It looks like 372.7 does call for 6 council members, but there would still be 1 from each of 4 wards and then 2 that are at large.
Right? But that's not what's on the petition that they signed, and that's the stickler here.
Well,
Plus-
personally, I don't care. I don't care what happens. I'm not voting for this because it's not what was told to people. It's not what, I don't think the people on this committee even think this. I think if they want to do it, they need to have a petition that specifically says they understand 5, and they need to tell people it'll be 5. And personally, I don't care what the state does to us. This people were signing this under misrepresentation.
Yes, they were.
Well, the other thing is, if this is not passed tonight and it's given to the county auditor by the 24th, then it doesn't meet the state standards of having September 8th as the date for the action itself.
I don't care.
Let's pick
So,
a different date.
because I think you can only have special elections in September and
March.
March. So,
Would they be able to flip this over to the election coming up in November?
No, you can't.
You can't,
Somewhere it was poor planning anyway that they did this, and we had to have a special meeting and spend $400+ here tonight. And nobody wants to take the blame or the credit for it, so I don't know, but it's not right. And then $6,000, they say, is usually what an election cost. We don't have that budgeted. Where are we gonna get it?
I would
Raise people's taxes?
but once we were served the petition with the right number of signatures, we have to go by what's on that petition and what's specified up above
And
where
I've
all
seen
those
it sit here
signatures
picking
are on.
apart before, just like I told you.
Well,
And it didn't go nowhere but the garbage.
so is there finable things against the city if they do not pay attention to a petition?
there could be a writ of mandamus. I did not go through, I didn't really go through a laundry list of
All that would
every
entail would be
possible
we'd
cause
have-
of action.
we'd have to-
The writ of
we'd have to
mandamus
pay
would
the
be
same
most
type of
appropriate.
Fees we're paying now.
What's that?
We'd have to pay the fees that were, the same fees we're paying now. The writ would force us in, would force it without a vote.
Like I say, would there be an expense for having this in September, whether we actually have it or not? I know it is if we, even if it doesn't pass, we still pay the cost to have a special election. But would we have to pay that if they vote down to even approve it? Would we have to pay for that special election even though we don't hold it?
There's no special, this resolution is what sets the wheels in motion for a special election. If this resolution isn't approved, no request goes to the auditor's office for a special election. I perhaps telegraphed the remedy against the council to the public here on this meeting tonight, and the committee chair, who is an attorney, will have to decide what to do should the council deny a petition, given everything I said here tonight.
I don't even think that committee wants 5. I don't think they understood it to be 5.
I think some might have. I think there's been changes since it started meeting. I know a few people who have bowed out of being on the committee with some of the last-minute changes, so I don't know. I don't know where
Mr.
that
Blakener
stands.
on the phone?
I'm sorry?
Is Mr. Blakener on the phone?
I don't believe he
Let me
is.
switch over and take a look. I can't run them both, but let me
If
switch.
there's 10 of us here and we can't figure out whether this is right or wrong, how's the public gonna know how to vote on it?
I'll help them.
Sorry, just one moment.
And quite honestly, Mr. Blakener doesn't have the ability to take this back now. He's not the 220 or however many individuals
108.
signed this. He put the wheels in motion, but he can't take it back.
Well, then you can start over.
I don't believe so. I don't think that he's on. I have our video, I have Stephen Smith, I have my iPad, I have our city phone, and then there's one other that says JL, and I don't know who that is, but I don't believe. And if he would be, most likely be on the phone, so I don't think so.
Well, I think we just vote on it and whatever happens, happens.
So if we don't even have a motion, because we haven't got a motion yet, or a second, it dies for lack of interest and just doesn't get covered tonight?
Correct.
But the petition specifies it to be special election September 8th. And by state law, I think there's like 45, 46 days from the time the auditor gets our
Right.
request for publication that,
The-
before the election.
The deadline for the September 8th meeting would be this Friday at 5 o'clock
In order to even have one on September 8th.
in order to have an election on September 8th.
Well, one other question this opens up then, because I do know that if we had this election and it didn't pass, we have to wait 4 years, I think, before this has even been reconsidered again. Isn't there a 4-year
What
That's
what I'd like to point out is that we have a valid petition in front of us that no one can take back. And the law says the council shall do several things. So the council shall do what the statute states, or it can't. But I think I've made my position clear on my reading of the law.
So if we do like the mayor says and we don't vote on it, is that better than to vote on it and vote it down?
It's the same.
Same.
Same result.
I think we vote on it, take a
What
stand.
you're saying is that because the petition was brought and it was signed and it's valid petition, we have to or approve it, I guess, per se. Or we don't really, it's not even for approval for us. It's-
No, you're not,
You-
you're approving the date for September 8th for this to be on the
Right.
special
We're not
election.
approving, what the form is or anything like that.
No.
We're just saying it's okay to have an election.
Right.
Well, to be specific, the statute says you shall publish notice within 15 days of receiving the petition of the special election date, which Gina drafted and I just looked over. And it says you shall submit the matter in the election language to the auditor's office. And that specific language ballot as drafted, the question would be, shall the city of Independence, Iowa adopt the council manager at large form of government pursuant to Iowa Code Section 172.6 in place of its current mayor council form of government pursuant to Iowa Code Section 372.4?
And I did,
5,
Yeah.
according to the code, right?
and I did include that statute that says about our publication of notice and our order to the county auditor, 372.2, in your guys' original council packet on your board docs. So you have that statute on your board docs as well.
Steve, one of the things that, when I run for a long time ago, I was told up there, no dittos. I don't care if it's independents, whatever, because when we run for council, they're all independents. They said you said that was okay. Now, at the courthouse, we filled out, when we run for office here, dittos, or they scratched them.
I wasn't asked about dittos. I was told by Al that dittos didn't count. And I was told there was still a complete number. The question I was asked is whether a date of, for example, July 15th and not July 15th, 2002 would be acceptable. And I said my opinion was that would be okay.
That would be. Okay, I'm just saying when it happened on my.
Yeah, when all the other, I would not want to reject what would be an otherwise valid petition where all the dates there, it's being circulated in July of 2020. The vast majority of dates there are, July of 2020. And then if some person, the house next door, they wrote July X 2020. The house on the other side, they wrote July X 2020. And the person in the middle wrote July X. I wouldn't want to reject a petition on that basis alone. I did not weigh in on dittos.
Okay, you didn't, okay. I was told you did.
And that was my fault, Carl. That is correct. We had an issue with dates as well, and Steve did verify that those incomplete dates were okay because we have the assumption that that year is the year that they are signing it, because they wouldn't be in the middle of petition signing for a different year, in our eyes.
Shouldn't be.
That says right in their letter here, the petition does not change the number of elected council members. Well, that's not correct.
No, yeah, that's when everybody.
No, that's why, if they want to push it, they can, but I don't think we should approve it.
So on that petition, it's 372.2 or 372.6?
372.6.
Which is
372.2 is the authorizing language. 372.6 is the section that outlines the form of government.
And that's
And
the
says
one,
5.
and the 372.6 is the one that says 5?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, I just want to reiterate that the petition form correctly states 372.6. So the question that they're asking to put on the ballot is not that the form of government be switched to 7, it's that the form of government be switched to that enumerated in 372.6, which calls for 5. I don't know how we judge subjective intent. We have a petition with a number of signatures on it.
I can tell you that Mr. Blackner stopped at my house, asked me to sign that petition, and said there would be no change in the number of council members. He's the gentleman, chairman of the committee, he's an attorney. I don't believe he thinks that it had to be 5. If he did, then he was totally misleading me in my conversation with him. And so therefore, if I, as a council member, was told by the chairman of the committee that it was 7, I don't feel that I think we need to take a stand and simply say, we're not going to approve this election, and if they don't think that it was right, they can come back and do it again. It's their choice, I don't care, but I don't, comfortable as an elected city official, I'm not going to put my stamp of approval on this, knowing that's not what I was told, and I don't believe it was what the committee's intention was.
Okay,
from the
so
committee's on the phone.
to
Not to my
potential,
knowledge.
perhaps rephrase that, if the council's position is that this is not a,
Valid.
I would argue
think
that
it's a
if
valid
you're not
petition.
going to follow the shalls, I think your position would have to be that it is not a valid petition for one reason or another, because a valid petition, the council shall take particular actions.
I don't think it's a valid petition. People
Steve, what
signed
would
it.
happen if I had members of the public who sign this petition? Like, say, if the council decides to pass this resolution and I order the county auditor to publish this notice and we're setting the election, what if tomorrow I receive a whole bunch of phone calls from people who sign this petition saying they want their signature removed? Does that have any effect on this?
I would say not.
Okay.
I mean, the ship's flown. I mean, if you vote for someone and then you have
signed it.
remorse, you don't get to go
Yeah.
back and call
Yeah.
and say, excuse me, I'd like my vote changed.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know in case I get a lot of phone calls
Can't take your name
tomorrow.
off a legal document that you
I would
signed.
have to weigh in and say I was misled also, because I was
And did you
told-
sign it?
Yes, and I was told. it
We
would
haven't
not
got, we
change
haven't got the numbers
number-
then.
It would not change the
Take your
number of
guys'
council
2 off of
positions.
there and the
They
numbers.
can't
Just
take,
that
they
everybody
can't
would
take
be
their
elected at
signatures off.
large.
Yep.
So,
It's
I mean, it
dishonest.
wouldn't affect anything
No, what-
other than no more wards.
One
That's
thing,
what I was told.
one thing I'll point out without budging from my position that the statute says shall, is that because of the number of days between September 8th, the special election, and the regular city election in November is less than 84, the election to elect the new council members under this new form of government wouldn't take place until November 2nd, 2021. And people wouldn't be seated until January 3rd, 2022. And you are allowed to have special elections in March. An argument could be made that there really is no damages if this gets on, if a petition is recirculated and resubmitted and in time for the special election in March, which would still put the date for electing the new council members all at large on November 2nd. That's the day, whether it's September 8th or March, whatever.
And if they wanted to change it to 372.7 and do 6 at large, they would have that ability to do that at that time. If they changed their,
Unless they elect to insist that this petition go forward.
I'd like to make the motion that we not approve the special election based upon the fact that it's not a valid petition because of the information that was given to people when they signed it.
I second that.
Okay, so your motion is to not approve the resolution calling for a special election in regard,
Again, trying to make sure that the
Keep us from
resolution,
inside.
the resolution that is on the agenda for today. How does that read, Bonnie?
It says, motion to approve a resolution calling for a special election in regards to changing the form of government for the city of Independence, period. The petition itself that made this needed is the one you have there that says 372.6.
Just to go on the record, so if we vote, and let's say, we pass this thing, essentially, I mean, it was brought to us, and most of us had the understanding that it was 7, but then it was brought to us as 5, so, we have an error in the information, and
Wouldn't that in itself be an argument to the fact that the council did not decide to vote on this because they didn't feel it was a valid petition?
it's our job to look out for
Because
the
of
people.
that
If the people
confusion?
sign for 7,
Well, then we take a stand and we vote on it, Bonnie. We just don't hide behind letting it lay there.
I think legally you'd be better off letting it lay there.
I think legally it'd be a better position if I didn't outline every aspect of every argument for and against. But
Who's gonna pay for it?
But you also said that it could be in March and still, it wouldn't affect the election at all. So they still have time to do that. And put the right information on this and,
I say they have time to correct it
yes.
and bring it back. But it's got to be done right.
And I guess I'd like to just correct or have the record reflect, was that printed? I got when I was provided by the city manager, a copy of the petition form. I didn't get the actual signed petition, but where I got the petition form, there was a letter from the citizens group, a letter that outlined what the committee believed it was asking for under 372.6 and what that meant. And then there was a petition behind that. I guess,
This is a copy of the actual petition. The only thing that's not included in this that came in the packet provided me by the chair was that cover letter from the chair.
was that, did you see that,
There was
Was
there
that
was a
presented?
letter, but I
were
asked
like this.
I asked personally what that meant.
There was that letter was attached
they
to the
were-
original petition.
All of them
Yes.
were given to me most of them were given to me like that. Some of them just had the first sheet, not
Yeah.
the second sheet.
The letter was attached, there was a letter attached to the one I signed.
There was on
and
mine.
this example of what a charter might look like was attached to all the petitions?
Not all of them, but a majority of them. Because I have some that are just the regular petition sheet, but it's on the back of some of them, and some of them are just plain.
Again, I'm going to have to state that the petition is the form right here that says prepared by the Iowa Secretary of State's office, which lists the right section number. My advice to the council is that that is the petition. Nothing attached to it, nothing said by anyone about it.
And that does say
What is that? What does that
372.6.
statute say? 5?
372.2.
That's the one.
372.6,
Six.
But that's,
if you pull it up, it says 5, the first sentence.
that's what I'm.
372.2 is just the procedure, and then the limits. For example, you can't.
372.2 is just authorizing the special election.
I put a copy of 372.6 at all of your council spots this evening before you arrived.
Especially wait till the last minute to do it. See,
And I would just say, if there's going to be a vote against it, my preference would be that it be in the form of in the affirmative, for example, in the form on the agenda, and then it simply die for a lack of a second or is voted against. But I would prefer the motion be in the affirmative.
But you said our best bet is we have to state a reason why we are voting no. And we don't feel it's a legitimate petition because of the information that was given at the time people signed it. So to not put that into the record, we're not telling anybody why we aren't simply following statute and approving this election.
Good point.
This is a very good point, because then we have no argument as to why we didn't approve it.
I bet you we get a lot of people say thank you for not, the ones that were misled. I mean, everybody, I had him on the phone when he talked to me, but it was 7 just like everybody else.
So I'm sorry I interrupted. You can go forward with your motion.
Okay, you have my motion, don't you?
Yeah, you want to say it again for us?
Okay, I make the motion that the council not approve the setting of the special election as requested in this petition, because it's the opinion of the council that this is not a valid petition due to information that was given to citizens at the time they signed it.
Got all of that?
Yes. And if not, I have a tape.
Okay. Did we have a second to Bob's
Anna?
motion?
Yes.
Bob?
Deb
Okay.
did.
Would you like a roll call?
Yeah.
Everybody ready for a roll call? Okay, yes,
And a
please.
vote in the affirmative is not to approve.
Correct. If you affirm this, you are not passing this resolution.
We vote.
Good
Yeah.
point, John.
Okay, everybody knows what they're doing.
Callahan,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
O'Loughlin,
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
That motion carries, meaning that they don't feel this is a valid petition.
Bring it back. Just for the record, I am in favor of the different form of government, but the way it was presented is not correct.
And I would just point out again, if it is brought back, it will not change the ultimate date of the election for the new council or when the new form of government would take effect. It would simply change the date of the special election from September to March, which could be beneficial with the current state of the world today.
I have a
Give them
question.
more time to work on it, too.
Do they have to state a section of the Iowa code in setting up a new government, or can they simply put together what they would like to see, that they want to do away with the mayor's position, they want to have at-large, and they want to have 7 members? And that's all they put in their petition. They don't list any state.
No, they need to list an alternative form of government to vote for. I don't want to, certainly don't want to be in the position of trying to interpret what people were thinking or what form of government goes on the ballot as an alternative.
I'm just asking, do they have to list a section of the Iowa code?
Got a
Yes.
statute, yeah.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay, seems like our meeting is over. Okay. I need a motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried.